Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Indy Investor Pod. We are Indy investors talking Indy investing, and that's just what we like to do. We like to just talk all about anything, just Indy real estate investing, what's happening in the city, what's going on, where should you be investing, how should you be investing, and what you do with all of that. Today, we're actually going to go a little bit different and switch it up from even just talking about investing. We're going to go a little personal today. And of course, I brought my buddy Brett Snodgrass in to do that with me. So this episode is brought to you by the Deal Machine app. If you are not on the Deal Machine app yet, please do that. It is the easiest way, best way when you are driving for dollars, looking for some lead generation going on. And of course, use the code SIMPLE to get some free credits. And with that, let's get on with the show. All right, and welcome back to another episode of the Indy Investor Pod. I got Brett Snodgrass, the owner of Simple Wholesaling, here with me today. And we decided we were just having a conversation the other day, and Brett did, and it's been almost a year ago, I think today, that you did a presentation on this. And we were just kind of talking and just about life and coming out of the holidays and coming into the new year. And we're like, maybe this would be a good time to kind of go a little personal, to kind of talk about this a little bit. And that question we just kind of put out there is, what if you ran your marriage like you did your business? So not saying you have to treat your wife down and be like, hey, like, we're going to have a business meeting. This is how it's going to be. I'm going to be the CEO. You're going to be, no, nothing like that. But what if you actually put, like, the way that you run your business, the way that you focus on your business, the way that you spend time on your business, the way you set goals within your business and really prioritize your business. What if you did the same thing within your marriage? Would that really, in the long run, help your marriage out? So that's what Brett and I are going to talk about today. And Brett, like I said, I know that you kind of did a presentation on this. I think it's been about a year ago now, and you received a lot of just like really good compliments. Just people were like really gravitated towards it. And that's why I wanted to do this today. And we do talk about real estate. We do talk about Indy investing, all that kind of stuff. But I do think it's good to focus on the investor as a whole. And I think this is a big part of that. So I just want to kind of feed it over to you. And so you did this presentation, you came up with this presentation, kind of what was the idea behind this, and how did you just come up with kind of the thought process behind this?
No, yeah. Thanks, Brian, for bringing me on the show today. I always appreciate being part of this podcast. It's an amazing thing you guys do. And really excited to be here to talk about this topic. And like Brian said, I brought up this topic at a mastermind group about a year ago. And I guess what really started to get me to thinking about this is that I've been married for 8 years now to my wife, Karen, and we have 4 beautiful children. And I remember dating my wife, and that was always a really exciting time. And you're pursuing someone, and all of your focus and your energy and your love goes into pursuing that relationship, right? And I was really just all about that relationship, dating her, pursuing her, courting her, going to premarital counseling, planning for our wedding, planning for our marriage. And then we have the wedding day, and so many people out there just like me. So you plan for this marriage, but then once you're in the marriage, sometimes you forget about some of those things that you are planning for, right? I remember a vow that I told my wife was that I was going to pursue her every single day for the rest of my life. I was going to be a warrior for her heart, that I was never going to stop pursuing her. Well, life happens. The kids come, and you just start kind of, survival mode. You start getting into the marriage, and then you start to talk about these different things that aren't the sexiest things to talk about. And some of the things just kind of die out. And if you're like me, a lot of people just survive, right? They just start winging their marriage, they wing their family, and there's really no planning to it. You just kind of fly by the seat of your pants, and everything is just very, very chaotic. And well, I started to think about, hey, what if that I could start to pursue my marriage and to structure this organization, this marriage organization, family organization, like I was structuring my business. Because, Brian, we know that we have a business coach. We plan all the time within our business. We set quarterly rocks and goals, and we have metrics that we try to measure and see how successful that we are. And I said, what if I could do some of the same things, maybe not all the same things in my marriage? What would happen? Well, I started to do that, and that was the presentation that I gave. And and I started to structure my marriage, some of the similarities that we were doing in the business, and that's kind of where this podcast came from.
As you're talking about that, I just had like I don't know, just in my head, I was like, oh man, what if I like actually developed a scorecard for you're talking about pursuing your wife? Like, what if you had a scorecard for pursuing your wife every single day? Like within business, we have, hey, how many phone calls did you make? How many sellers did you talk to? How many offers did you make? All that kind of stuff. Of what if you had a scorecard? Like, oh, did I give my wife, 5 compliments today? Did I do this? Did I do that? Oh crap,
That
I
is
would
true.
not be doing well right now. I would have
That
red
is
all over that scorecard. So yeah.
It is true. Actually, you can't do everything that we business owners do. There was actually a funny story that someone did that. So there's like the automation, right? We talk about automation in our business a lot, and we set up automatic emails, automatic texts, and things like that. Well, there was one husband that set up an automation for his wife, and so she would get like this automatic text every so often. Well, it kind of backfired on him because she got this text that's like, I love you so much, hope you're having a great day, and he was sitting literally right beside her. And
Yeah.
so it can backfire if you do everything in the business
Yeah.
in your marriage.
So, but what this really comes from is the prioritization of, your marriage, of pursuing your wife, of prioritizing your time together, how you're spending it, what you're doing. Because we know within business, if we don't focus on certain areas of our business, that's what's going to suffer. And, maybe we focus on one area more than the other. And we can feel that. We might feel that the next week or next month, or, the next quarter or anything like that. It's the same thing within our business, to be able to do that. And I just know something relatively new that I noticed I had to kind of refocus and do was now with Clubhouse out of basically, like, Clubhouse gives me anxiety, and I realize it's because like it's like kind of that FOMO thing, but also the fear of like that you can always be on, like there's always people on, there's always people talking about business, about real estate and things like that. Well, then it turned into my wife she want to have a conversation or watch a TV show 8 o'clock at night or something, or spend time together, and I'd be like, oh, well, I'm on Clubhouse right now and stuff. She's like, oh, so now we're just going to work all the time. Like, yes, there's always something that can pop up that comes into our world. It comes into the business world where you can be focused on your business. That, it comes into, how am I prioritizing? How am I setting my time? How am I, kind of putting in this? Am I being proactive? Like, hey, I have this call tonight, or I have to do this. Are you doing that same thing with your wife? Hey, I'm going to be proactive. I'm going to set some time aside tonight for us to spend time together. Or, hey, can I schedule a date night with you so we make sure that we have nothing else? We're going to block it off right now, nothing else going on. And I know Brett, like, talking with you over the last couple of years, I feel like you and Karen have done a really good job of this. At least, kind of at the time you guys were like, hey, we're going to have a date night, like, once a week and stuff like that. And then things like COVID happens and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden you have to figure out how you're doing that again and stuff. So what are some tips that you have for people out there when they're like, hey, yes, this is going to resonate with me. I need to, kind of prioritize my marriage. I need to start, booking some time. I need to figure out how, yes, I'm not going to run my marriage like a business meeting, but I need to prioritize it like I do my business.
Yeah. Um, no, that's a great question. So some of the things that we started doing is, I think it all just boils down to communication. And I think that that's obviously, in my opinion, that is the key ingredient to having a successful marriage, right? And everything that we do in business, and when we're setting our goals, when we're setting, up our team, and we're having those meetings and accountability meetings and making sure everybody's hitting their numbers, things like that, a lot of it really is the same thing. It's about communication. It's about, hey, we need to get on the same page. How are we going to communicate with each other? So for example, in our business, SIPA wholesaling business, we come up with core values within our business, right? And Brian, you just recently did this exercise, is you start to think about, hey, who is someone that I really, really admire, that I really look up to? And out of those people, what are the characteristics that they have that I really, really want, right? So you can do the same thing in your marriage. Like, what are some characteristics that we see other happily married couples have that we want in our marriage, right? So you start to come up with these core values, and you write all these things down, and you're talking about them, you're communicating, and you come up with these few core values that make up your marriage, make up your family. And those are always non-negotiables, right? So, and you talk about them. I didn't come up with them, she didn't come up with them. We communicate and we came up with them together, right? And I think it's like a business partnership, right? Because you're running this organization together. So I think that's first, like, who are you? What are the non-negotiables that you do not negotiate in your marriage, right? It could be we never lie to each other. Some of ours are, so one of the things was embrace your passions. So I'm a passionate person. I love to pursue things that I am very passionate about. So that's just one thing. That's one of our family core values. We just want to embrace our passions. So if my wife is passionate about something, I want her to pursue that. I want her to embrace it. Another one is always be thankful. So we live in a culture that, sometimes, we're a very blessed family, but sometimes I forget to be grateful. Well, this is a core value that I always have to remember. I'm very, very thankful for what God's given me and my family. So that's just an example. Come up with some core values that makes up who you are, who your marriage is, and that's a great starting point.
Yeah, I really like that. I like that idea of that, and that exercise of going through and figuring out, hey, who are the the couples that we know of that have happy marriages that seem like they're doing really well together and stuff like that. What are the values they hold on to, or what are the things that we kind of admire about them, or we aspire to be as a couple about them, and really writing those things down and seeing what really resonates to you. And what you do through that exercise is really figure out of like all those things that you listen, all the things that you like list, and my light just went off because I'm in the office. All the things that you really list are, and then the things that you do that you really aspire to be, the things that you see in other people are really what you're describing of what you really want from your marriage and stuff like that. So I think that's great advice. And then kind of coming back to too of going back to you kind of look at, hey, in a marriage, what are some of the stressors? A lot of it comes into sometimes it's the same stressors that you have within a business. It's the stuff like the budget. It's the stuff like planning. It's those type of things. So not saying that you need to sit down and have like, hey, like a business meeting in general, but should you set time aside where you're like, hey, let's talk about our monthly budget or weekly budget. Let's see where we are. Let's set goals for the next week, for the next month, for the next quarter, for the next year. I think that's all really important. It's the stuff that businesses thrive on. It's the stuff that marriages can thrive on as well. By number one, you said it in the last part of it's not that I'm coming up with it or Anna's coming up with it. It's that we're coming up with it together and setting those things. I think it's great. Even if you want to do like a vision board, that type of thing where you're coming up with like, hey, here's what we really want, for our within the next year or the next 5 years, or you can even come up with that BHAG, that big, hairy, audacious goal or whatever it is. But where do you guys want to get to? And then what are the steps that you want to get to that point together? Which I think is all really, really important. And then of course, when you have, you're talking about, your marriage and how I love the fact that you kind of put in there, like pursuing your wife too. Just love that term. That's something actually I've started doing with, the leadership team, like everybody that's on our leadership team, within our team. That's something I ask them each and every week of like, hey, how are you pursuing your wife? I know that's not like HR compliant and stuff like that. We've had a conversation. Yes, we're okay having that conversation and talking about that stuff, because I know that if their marriage is going really well, they're going to be in the right mind space for their business as well. I think it's all relatable and stuff. But anyway, back to kind of that point of you have, you're pursuing your wife, and that's all good. And you're kind of figuring that out, and you can run that. But then also you have kids, and you throw that into the mix of how does that all work? And like, hey, you can have core values within your wife and you set goals and stuff like that. But when you have, your 5-year-old running around and you're like, no, that's not one of our core values. How does that work?
Well, I relate it to, again, back to the business. You have an organization. So in our family, me and my wife, we're like the visionary and the implementer, or just kind of partners, right? And we're leading this team together. And then my kids are people on the team, right?
Yeah.
We're the leaders of these children, and we can't just let, you're not going to let one of your employees just go out and just do whatever they want. There has to be some order and some structure in their life. Well, that's the same thing that we do within our family. We're the leaders, and we have to have discipline, structure, order in order for this family to be successful, right? And if it's super chaotic and we let them do whatever we want, it's going to fail. It's not going to be successful. So I think, one of the things that we do, again, it's about communication. So, that's one thing we do, the core values, and we do a lot of business family planning. So one thing that Karen and I do each week, we do have sort of a business type of meeting. We don't really call it a business meeting. We call it just, hey, let's have a same page meeting. And again, it's just about how can we communicate with each other? What's going on this next week? What's going on this month? Let's first get our schedules together, right? When you got 4 kids, your schedules are really, really hectic. So let's get on the same page with our schedules. What's going on this week? What are you doing? What am I doing? Who's making dinner? Who's taking our son to swimming? And you got all these scheduling things, right? And then there's the date night. And I think it's just very, very important, especially if you have kids, you don't have any time by yourself. And, typically people say, well, I got time after the kids go to bed. Well, if you have 4 kids like I do, you're completely exhausted and you just want to collapse on the bed when the kids are in bed. So, planning that date night, it's very, very important. And if you don't schedule it, it's just not going to happen. Life's going to get in the way. And, it's just like business. If we don't plan our business meetings, Brian, it's not like, I'll just call you one day and we'll have a little business meeting. You have to have a rhythm each week, have that date night. It's very, very important. And it doesn't have to be anything huge either, right? You don't have to get all dressed up, wearing whatever, going out to an expensive dinner. You don't have to do all that. We've done, especially during COVID, we've had at-home date nights where we do get, at least fixed up. We're not in our pajamas. We have maybe a glass of wine or watch a movie together or just, hang out. I don't know, just do whatever. And it's just very, very important just to have that time set aside together. And that's the time magic happens. Sometimes you don't think anything's going to happen. Oh, we've tried that. But you need to have that quantity of time. So eventually it's going to turn into that quality as well.
Yeah. So when you take off the pajama pants and put on your dress sweatpants or your nice sweatpants,
right? Your bow tie. Yeah. Let's not get into all that.
Yeah. So no, I think it's, you brought up some really good points there. And this it's what we're talking about here. We're just kind of throwing out that question of basically like kind of what would happen to your marriage if you ran it or if you prioritized it like you did your business. And I think it's a good question to ask. I think it's a good question to reflect on. And I kind of just go back to, I saw Brett make this presentation a year ago, and that's why I kind of thought it would be a good topic to bring up, just because investors, and we see this all the time, as we're in a lot of different groups. We talk to a lot of different people, and it's very, very often of you have that entrepreneur, that businessman, that investor, whoever it is, and it seems like they have everything together. It seems like, oh man, this person, this guy, this lady, she has all the money that she could ever ask for, and everything's going so well, and her business is just awesome, and he's just crushing it, whatever it may be. And then you have a conversation with them, it's like, man, I'm sad. I'm miserable. Like my marriage is failing. I don't know what to do. Like I never talk to my husband. I'm always at the office. Like everybody's heard the story. Everybody's seen it in movies. Everybody, it's around us. So what would happen if you did prioritize that marriage? If you did prioritize it, the way that you do your business, the way you focus on it, the way you spend time on it, would your business necessarily suffer because you're not focused on it as much? Or would it be better because you're in the right mindset, because you are thinking about the right things and you are scheduling your time maybe a little bit better? I know that comes out of big time with me, of like all of a sudden where I feel like there's days where I'm working all the time. I'm focused on the business like multiple days, and I maybe don't have time to spend with honor, within that. What really happens is because I'm not prioritizing, I'm not time blocking the way I need to within my business. And really the business isn't getting much better because I'm all over the place. I'm focused on too many things. So write down what those priorities are and focus on those, time block those things. and then set aside that time of like, hey, I'm clocking out right here. I'm going to spend some time with the wife, with the kids, whoever it may be for you. And this comes into like, we are talking about marriage, and I don't have any kids, but we're talking about family as well. But who is important to you? Maybe it's your church, maybe it's your family, maybe it's your friends, whoever it may be. But setting that time aside, number one, so you can have some personal time away from the business, but you can also grow as a person. And then obviously if it's a girlfriend or a wife or whoever that is, that marriage is going to be just a whole lot better because you're taking care of yourself, which is hugely important. So Brett, when it comes to that kind of part of it, of taking care of yourself, so your wife and your business can be in the right place, how important is that?
No, I think it's so important. I mean, you definitely have to take care, and I'm careful in the saying all this too, but you definitely have to take care of yourself. Put your oxygen mask on first before you can help
Yeah.
them. You got to be in a good place, whatever that looks like to you. And so for me, it's like, hey, I need to be more of myself. I need to make sure I'm getting a fitness type of routine in. I'm eating well. I'm taking care of myself mentally. I'm not filled with anxiety, um, because I'm going to tell you, I mean, I've been there before, and I've, a lot of entrepreneurs have been reaching out to me lately, and because I've been kind of open up a little bit about some of the struggles that I've had as an entrepreneur and with my health and things like that. And I'm going to tell you, I mean, if you're coming home and you're super exhausted, and your business has sucked the life out of you, and your mind is always constantly spinning 90 miles an hour all the time, and you can't be present at home. I'm not, I don't have to be one to tell you, like, you're just not being a very good husband, or a spouse and a father. Like, I know what that's like. If I can't be present and I'm super exhausted and I just want to get my kids into bed and my wife just to leave me alone, like, that's a terrible place to be, right? And for me, I was willing to give up some of the business, right? I was like, you know what, I'm going to sacrifice maybe some of this business. Maybe it'll get worse, maybe it won't, I don't really know, but I need to spend some energy here because I can't let the business suck all of the energy out of me. So that's when I just started thinking, I gotta be intentional about this, and I gotta focus on this. And Brian, you say this word all the time. It's about being proactive. So, I think you said this when we were setting our vision trip this year for our business. We need to be proactive in our business rather than being reactive. In the business world, it's like, hey, let's get our budget together before like spending all of our money and then looking at our where we spend all of our money, right? It's like being reactive. Let's be proactive instead of reactive. You can do the same thing in your marriage and in your family. Like, you don't have to wait until things are just completely in the gutter before going and seeing a mentor or a counselor, right? An example was, we took one of my children to see a counselor a couple of weeks ago, and my wife and I were both sitting in this counseling room, and we asked the counselor, we said, hey, do you guys do any marriage counseling? And immediately they said, well, what's wrong with your marriage? And we were like, well, nothing. We want to be proactive. And they're like, I've never heard of that. I was like, I don't know, like, we're healthy, but we want to get better. And anyways, that was just kind of one of those things that just got me thinking about, is like, just because you have an okay marriage, nothing is wrong. You can still do a little bit better, be proactive, put some of these things into place, and it just pays off dividends in the long run for
Yeah.
sure.
It's one of those things of you don't hire somebody within your business after you've already needed them and you're behind, because then nobody has time to train them. Everybody's at capacity and stuff like that. You have to hire somebody within your business before you need them, when you're focused on like, hey, we're gonna get this next step. We need to bring somebody in so we can get there. So I have time to train them, all that kind of stuff. So it comes back to just, like you said, being proactive of like, hey, can we, maybe it's counseling, maybe it's just having conversations, maybe it's doing certain stuff, maybe it's looking at a budget a certain way, but being proactive about all that stuff. You don't want to have a huge budget conversation with your wife after you're like, oh man, I'm like 10 grand in debt and I don't know what to do. And I have this credit card max. No, you want to have that conversation as hey, I'm going to, be proactive about it. I'm going to get this credit card. I'm going to spend this, or I need, before you get into too much trouble, and being there. One
Yeah.
of the things I want to bring up, I love that word of proactive. I use it all the time, within business. And I think it relates to, the personal side as well. Another word I want to kind of bring up, and this might be a little touchy for some people and stuff like that, but it's accessibility. Of are you accessible, and also is your stuff accessible and stuff. I know one of the things, like, my wife can get in, she can see my calendar, she knows where where my meetings are, things like that. Like, I'm accessible, and like, we, bank accounts, like stuff like that, that's okay. Like, she knows my code for my phone, she's gonna get in there. I mean, some of that kind of stuff is I think is just healthy. Some people are not going to agree with that. I understand why, but it comes back into, of like, are you accessible? Are you hiding anything? Brett and I, we went through this, something called the Great Banquet here in Indianapolis, and it's just it's a Christian retreat, religious retreat. There's one for guys, one for girls, and just one of the biggest things that I took out of it, and it's not even it's for my, I feel like it's for my marriage, for my business, for just life in general. Is basically, if you're hiding anything, you're already in trouble.
Mm.
And it's just that's always stuck with me. And I'm just like, man, if I can't be honest with my wife about this, I'm probably in trouble. If I can't be honest with my team about this, I'm in trouble. And it works the same way within personal stuff and business stuff and things. So, Brett, when you think of just like accessibility, and that can come into multiple things. When I say it could be phone, could be calendar, could be bank accounts, that kind of stuff. But the number one thing is just being accessible to your wife, to be able to have a conversation, have a date night, watch a TV show, do that. I'm terrible about, like, if we're watching a TV show, I'm probably going to be on my laptop. I can't watch a TV show by myself, or watch it sporting. I have to be doing something. I'm always multitasking. But it comes into, of like, hey, am I accessible? Do I have to have my laptop in front of me right now? Can I hold off for a little bit? Or, can I have a conversation without looking at my phone? Can I go to dinner and keep my phone in my pocket or in my car while we're at dinner? That's really hard for a lot of business owners, for a lot of entrepreneurs, for a lot of investors. Because, man, what if I miss that deal? What if I miss this, this email or things like that? But putting things in place, being proactive about, hey, I'm going to be out of pocket for, this time. Is it going to be okay? Yeah, probably. And I'll figure it out from there. So when it comes to this accessibility, what do you think about that word, Brett?
I think it's really, really good. Yeah, be accessible, be available. And just brings back old memories. I mean, back in my before I was even married, I remember this story. I was just in the business for a couple of years, and I was at dinner with a girlfriend, and we were at dinner, and just got this call, and it was this deal, and I had to take it, and I went outside, and I was talking to this guy, and literally 45 minutes later, I think I left. My girlfriend ended up leaving. Like, it was just a crazy situation. Like, I was not accessible at all. I skipped the whole dinner, left her hanging so I could get this deal done. Don't do that, I guess, is the bottom line. So I've learned, I definitely have learned, and just to be accessible and available. I think it's just so important, not only to your spouse, but also to your kids. And, you just don't know when those times are going to come that they really, really need you, right? And if you don't practice that, being accessible, being available, you're going to really miss it. And I think, Brian, we had that conversation a couple of months ago, and I've had some things going on in my family, and I told you, I just really need to be available for my family. I don't really know why or when that's going to happen, when they're really going to need me, but when they do, I definitely want to be there, right? And I just think that's really important. And it doesn't always have to be physically there, but mentally, I think is huge, right? Because as entrepreneurs, we're always going 100 miles an hour. Our heads are always spinning. And it takes practice. So if you can practice being available, practice being accessible, it's really hard at first if you're not used to it, to put your phone down at certain times. For me, it's like, hey, between dinner but by the time bedtime, I don't really touch my phone, right? I just, whatever. And, but that took a lot of practice for me to do. And so I would just say, just start to practice it and just take baby steps. And you don't have to, go into this huge business plan right now and have meetings every week and date nights and all this stuff. Just do one thing, right?
Yeah.
Just, if you picked up one thing from this conversation, this interview, just take that home today.
Yeah. So no, good stuff. And as we're running out of time, I just kind of, this is something like I said, this is more of a personal episode, something to kind of reflect on, think about as an investor, as an entrepreneur, as a, somebody in the business. So we're going to kind of put out a little challenge for everybody. And that's just like Brett said right there. What's the one thing, maybe two things that you can reflect on and take back to your wife or your husband or your family or your kids or whoever it is? How can you be more available to them, and how can you pursue them a little bit more, whether it's each week, each month, each quarter, whatever it is? We know that you guys are setting those metrics within your business. Can you set those metrics? Can you set those goals? Can you set those kind of challenges for yourself within what you're doing within your family, your marriage, for your kids, all that stuff? Also too, just off of what Brett said, of kind of, there's a lot of times that maybe I'm not actually present like in person, but I can be accessible and I can be available to my wife by on the phone, by having a really good conversation, a really good FaceTime, a really good Zoom or something like that. And there's times where I can be super present. I can be right there beside her and not actually be present mentally and not be accessible because I'm doing something else. So something to think about. Brett, do you have anything else to add before we get out of here, man?
Yeah. I think, as I look around and I see a lot of very, very successful business owners, but a lot of, some of them have failed privately. And I was actually at this one mastermind, and this very, very successful entrepreneur was up there, and he had just gotten divorced. And I think he'd been married for, quite a while, 10, 12 years, something like that, had kids. And he made this statement. He said, "There's no public success that will ever replace your private failure." And I think that if you ask a lot of business owners that have been through a divorce or whatever that looks like, or maybe their kids have went a different direction, I think that if they could go back, they would change some things. They would probably give up a lot of their success in business to change, their marriage. And you can do it right now. It's not rocket science. It's just being intentional every day, for sure.
So awesome stuff, man. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate you. Really appreciate the insights and just the idea behind this question of moving it forward and really kind of pushing out of like what we can do within our marriage and what we can do within our business as well. So thanks a lot. If you need anything from us, please feel free to reach out to us anytime. Brian at simplewholesaling.com, Brett at simplewholesaling.com. If you have any questions at all, let us know what you want from us. What do you want from the show? What we can do for you here on the Indy Investor Pod. And with that, this is another episode. It's a wrap. Take care.